Food is the fuel we need to get our bodies working and going. Without it, we wouldn't have the energy and the nutrients we need for a healthy lifestyle. And we all have our own tastes and our favorite meals. And some people also like fancy stuff like caviar or some exotic cuisine that costs more than my monthly salary. Stick around for some of the most expensive food people eat as well. With that said, let's find out with our first entry: oysters. Seafood is usually a bit more expensive than regular meat or other dishes in general. And when it comes to seafood, there are all sorts of options. Oysters are among those, and among the most expensive dishes in this category. People will usually pay anything between $50 to $100 per oyster, which makes each oyster cost a little less than $10. I could easily buy 2 meals from Taco Bell or a fancy breakfast at a local cafe with that money, and probably enjoy it a bit more. But $10 for one single oyster? Sounds pricey, but people do pay for it, and happily. It seems like the dish is reserved for the wealthiest people around, or people who consider themselves wealthy, which is funny considering that oysters used to be the meal for the working class because they used to be abundant and cheap. Our next entry is foie gras. If you're into European cuisine, then you probably know about pâté, a paste that's formed by combining a bunch of grounded meats, veggies, and spices. And if you like it, then you might want to try foie gras as well. The only thing you need to keep in mind is that foie gras is a bit more expensive. One single pound costs around $100, and what makes it different from pâté is that it comes from the liver of a fattened duck or goose. Of course, you might not be a fan of this food if you stand for animal rights. While this dish is indeed tasty, we need to remember that fattening a bird just to get a fancy dish is really cruel and mean. That's also why it's going to be a bit difficult to find it in some countries, since they now have regulations that don't allow people to grow birds to make foie gras specifically. Our next entry is fugu. Expensive dishes can also be some of the most dangerous foods that you'll ever have in your life. Just look at fugu, a common entry in many of our lists. The dish itself is about $135 per pound, but it can be deadly if it's not properly cooked. Fugu is a glowfish, an animal that can easily poison us in regular conditions, and cooking it doesn't make it any less dangerous. That's why Japanese people have a lot of regulations around the cooking of this dish. Only trained chefs are allowed to make it after they spend around 3 or more years of training. Would you take the risk to have fugu in your life? It might just be the last thing you eat if it's not properly prepared. But hey, if you get the chance to try it, then you should go for it. Just get that money ready, your tombstone ready, and your will made out, because it ain't gonna be cheap. And if it's cheap, then I would probably stay away from that place. No one would sell you cheap fugu after years of intensive training. Our next entry is Wagyu beef. If you like beef like me, then you need to try this at some point in your life. Wagyu beef is a cut made out of 4 different cow breeds, and all of them come exclusively from Japan. It's said that eating Wagyu beef is like eating fish, and that's not because of the flavor. It's because the meat easily melts in your mouth after it's rendered down in the cooking process. After the exhausting process of raising and caring for 4 different cow breeds and then killing them, it shouldn't surprise us that each pound costs around $200. Our next entry is vanilla. Okay, yeah, I know what you're about to say. Vanilla's not that expensive, I get it in ice cream all the time. Well, you're right, vanilla is quite affordable, but only if you buy it in small amounts and if it's synthetic. Yeah, I'm sorry to break it to you, but natural vanilla beans are actually pretty pricey. I mean, have you ever bought a pound of real vanilla? That thing can cost around $300. This is because vanilla is an orchid and it's quite difficult to grow and extract the vanilla pods. Madagascar is the world's largest producer, and the country has been hit by storms in recent years, which has caused the prices to rise. But hopefully, natural vanilla will be less expensive in the years to come. In the meantime, I'm okay with just getting vanilla essence, even if it's not as natural as I thought it was. Our next entry, Iberico ham. Pigs love food. You can expect them to eat pretty much anything, and sometimes that includes trash and other foods that no one else would eat. However, Iberico ham comes from very refined and sophisticated pigs that eat acorns during their final days. This processed meat can be found in Portugal and Spain, and they say that if you want the best Iberico ham, you should get the black label. The pigs that are used to make the black label Iberico ham are pigs that only ate acorns in oak forest during their entire existence. Our next entry is manuka honey. Some people say that manuka honey is like a good wine. It grows in flavor and darkness as it gets older. So if you like sweet stuff, then this honey is for you. It comes from a tree called Leptospermum scaparium that grows in New Zealand. Some people even call it the manuka bush. This honey is special because of its healing powers, and it's said that it can treat sore throats and the common cold. It also has apparently antiviral, anti-inflammatory, and antioxidant properties. So this honey is like sweet medicine. But of course, you can't expect something this good to be cheap. A kilo of manuka honey is around 500 big ones. Our next entry is moose cheese. Cow products are so last year, and that includes that regular cheese you love. If you want to impress your friends, then you need to get moose cheese. Yeah, you heard it right. Moose cheese is an actual thing. If you can get milk from them, you can also get cheese, but it's also very exclusive because it's only made in Sweden at a place called the Moose House Farm. That's why it costs about $500 per pound, because I really don't know any other place that would sell this kind of product, honestly. The next entry is Matsutake mushrooms. This type of mushroom grows in Europe, Asia, and good old North America, but it's mostly used in Asian cuisine. Korean, Japanese, and Chinese people love it. The downside is that a lot of insects and trees have taken over the territory of these mushrooms, which has made it hard for them to grow. That's why they're a bit more uncommon these days, and they might go extinct if no one does anything to protect their habitat. I wouldn't worry yet though, you can still try them, but only if you pay about $600 per kilo. That means a single ounce is going to be around 20 bucks. It's probably the most expensive mushroom in the world. Legally, of course. Our next entry is saffron. Cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, they can all be a bit pricey sometimes, but none of these spices can be as expensive as saffron. Saffron is what gives yellow rice its color, and it's also used for dyes, medicine, and perfumes, but its main use is in food due to its bright color and nice smell. It's actually nicknamed red gold for very good reason. While it's commonly used in different cuisines around the world, it's also very hard to extract. This spice comes from the crocus flower and it has to be extracted by hand. Now, imagine 2 football fields of crocus flowers. That's the same amount of flowers that you're gonna need to extract 1 kilo of saffron. It sounds pretty crazy, but it gets even worse when you figure out that a kilo can cost between $500 and $2,000. The good thing is that people only need a little bit of it to make their dishes. Our next entry is Ayam Cemani. When your food has supernatural powers, you can't expect it to be cheap. That is the case of Ayam Cemani, an Indonesian dish that's believed to have superpowers. Ayam means chicken in the Indonesian language, and this chicken is famous because of a dominant gene that causes hyperpigmentation. This makes the feathers, beak, and internal organs look completely black. People in Indonesia believe that this chicken has the power to heal many illnesses and bring you good fortune. Would you like to try it? Oh, that's just great. And just keep in mind that each chicken's gonna cost you about 2,500 bucks. So will that be cash, credit, or your firstborn child? Because honestly, we take those too. Our next entry is bluefin tuna. People say that bluefin tuna is the most expensive fish in the world. It comes from Japan and each pound costs about $100 or even thousands of dollars. This fish has a lot of fat, which gives it a very unique texture and taste that doesn't compare to any other tuna fish in the market. Also, exporting it from Japan to other countries makes it pretty pricey, since it's exclusive to that part of the world. I guess it'll be a bit cheaper if you're able to get it while you're visiting the land of the rising sun, but still. The next entry is Yubari King melons. If you ever get a Yubari King melon, you should consider yourself lucky. People in Japan consider these fruits a very fancy gift, and for a good reason. They're a cross of 2 types of cantaloupe that resulted in a very sweet combination, sweeter than any other melon you've tried before, I guarantee. During one auction, 2 of these fancy fruits got sold for more than $12,000 each. I could buy food for a year with that much money, but I guess people are eager to pay that much, and the melon promises to be one of the sweetest fruits ever. Now it's time for the day's best pick. The picture I chose for the day shows a very expensive and weird-looking food on a fancy cushion. What can be so special about that food? It kinda looks a bit gross, actually. Let's check it out with white truffles. You might be familiar with truffle oil, and if you've seen truffles, you know they're mostly black. But there's a rare kind of truffle that grows in the northern part of Italy. Those are the white truffles, and the reason why they're so exclusive to this part of the world is because they only grow among the roots of specific trees. They have a very strong taste and a distinct smell. A pound of white truffles can be anything between $500 and $1,200, and the price is determined by how much time it actually took to find them and process them, and also, of course, by their availability. Before we move on, do me a favor. My analytics show that only about 15% of you watching are actually subscribed. Come on guys, what's up with that? Can you guys please hit the subscribe button? You guys watch my videos every day anyway, so you might as well subscribe and keep up to date with every video we put out. Our last entry is Almas caviar. You wouldn't expect me to finish this list without mentioning caviar, am I right? It's the first food that comes to mind whenever I think of fancy dishes. However, even caviar has different categories, and the most expensive kind is Almas caviar, which is sourced from a rare female albino fish that is between 60 and 100 years old and lives in the Caspian Sea in an area that has not been spoiled by pollution. Yet. If you ever want to treat yourself to this exclusive dish, you should start saving now. A kilo of Almas caviar can be $34,000. Have any of you ever tried any of these dishes? Let's say you win the lottery today though, which of these foods would you like to try first? Are there any other expensive dishes I didn't mention today? Let us know in the comments. And with that said, I'm gonna go grab a $5 Little Caesars because I'm smart and hungry, not poor and hungry. See you all next time, everybody. Laters!